Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Enjoy the fanfic. And let's begin part 3. Naruto. Ashura stood in front of him, his eyes looking at him warmly, a splendid smile on his face. Ashura kneeled in front of Naruto. What can I do for you, young Senju? Ashura asked kindly. Ashura, I wanted to ask what is your advice on what to do with how hidden villages are with each other. Hashirama told me that he and Madara united the clans and created Hidden Leaf Village, but there's no peace. This is just a temporary peace, a war hidden in the shadows waiting to explode. What should I do? Naruto asked, feeling anger. The shinobi had been ordered by the Raikage to kidnap a Hyuga if he could be a Hyuga child. Naruto knew this, but he wasn't sure how. The whole memory of him saving Hinata was almost clouded, but not the memories of the dead Jonin, and Naruto wasn't sure why. The blonde had thought to tell the Hokage, but right now, he wasn't sure if the old man was trustworthy anymore. Telling him about the memories of the dead Jonin would force him to ask how he knew. Therefore Naruto had thought that saying nothing would be better rather than just opening new problems. I'm not sure, young Uzumaki. My father told me to spread the knowledge of chakra. I followed my father's footsteps, sure that was the way towards peace. The conflicts between each other started soon after the birth of my third child. My children took responsibility for my actions. People did not come together when the knowledge of chakra was spread. Wars didn't end. They stayed the same, Ashura said with a heavy heart. He could remember when he was first forced to execute a member of their group. He had been caught using chakra to kill people for fun. He had been caught red-handed in his basement, body parts everywhere hanging around the wall. In his personal room, he had found him there smiling eagerly. Jars filled with blood in the table behind him, bodies of men, women and children hanging around the walls like decorations, their guts hanging from their sliced open stomachs. A corpse hanging behind him had 4 arms attached around his back. Psycho Jaime had started laughing in front of him, saying that he would find every little secret that chakra was hiding from him. The experiments were needed to find just how strong can a person get. Ashura had killed him on the spot. The bodies were buried, but the body of Psycho was thrown into the wilderness and let him rot, without a place where people could remember him. The second time had been after many years in Jui town. His children had discovered people forcing the town to give them money, in return for healing them, but the worst part was they were the ones causing the sickness. I don't have any easy answers, young Senju. Even my father didn't know how to bring peace. My grandmother tried to enslave the whole world, and my father believed spreading the chakra would bring people together. My advice to you, young Senju, is to unite the people of this world, under one symbol, under one village. Like how Hashirama and Madara created the Hidden Leaf Village, I believe you can create a new one that belongs to everyone, Ashura advised. Naruto said nothing as the figure of Ashura started disappearing until it was gone. The young blonde found himself in the apartment again, his hands rubbing his back. Naruto understood what he meant, at least he hoped he did. His thoughts were on his Uchiha family. Would it be safer for them? What would they think? Naruto looked down at his palms, at the moon and sun symbol. Why did he have so much responsibility? It wasn't enough that he was an orphan, but the people of his home hated his guts. Kurama, what do you think is the difference between right and wrong? Is there any difference, or is the line between right and wrong just as an illusion we create for ourselves? Naruto asked quietly, as his eyes kept looking at his palms. Kurama stayed quiet for some time. He wasn't sure of the answer. I'm not sure, Naruto. In my life, those people that tried to capture me and use my chakra for their own gain were wrong. But what if those people were desperate people that needed to protect their loved ones? At that point in life, the line between right and wrong slowly gets thinner when it comes to helping the ones we love, because without them, we are nothing, Kurama said. Naruto listened to his words and his mind went back to his Nisan. His mind remembered Shisui, Makoto-chan, and Kurama, his best friend. Naruto said nothing as his body lied on the floor. his hands together in front of his face, his head feeling the carpet below his head, a red carpet. What is the cost of peace? After 1 week. The following week, Naruto kept practicing. His clones had him surrendered, they had formed a circle around him. Itachi and Shisui were looking closely at Naruto since he told them he wanted to show something to them. Each clone grabbed a kunai from their pouches, and immediately threw them at Naruto. The blonde activated his Sharingan and saw the kunai moving slower. He grabbed a single kunai and threw at one closest to him, causing it to change the direction that hit another kunai and another one. Itachi and Shisui gasped that every single kunai had fallen in the ground and hadn't reached Naruto. A proud smile erupted on both of their faces, seeing him, but next thing surprised them and put them on guard immediately. Each clone suddenly showed right in front of Naruto, each one had Sharingans on their eyes. Shisui was about to intervene when Naruto threw himself up in the air doing hand signs. Fire style. Dragon form jutsu. A Hugs dragon came out of his mouth and obliterated every clone in the ground. Itachi and Shisui jumped away from the unbearable heat coming from the red flames that burned down the whole grass in the entire training field. Itachi noticed that leaves around the trees had turned dark from the heat. He hadn't known about the existence of red fire. He had known of Amaterasu, the dark flames that never extinguished. The Uchiha duo moved over to Naruto, who was lying in the middle of the field breathing heavily. The whole field had turned dark and smoke around the ground, his chest rising up and down like that would be his last breath, and he was trying to breathe as much as possible. That was awesome, Naruto. You sure have many secrets, Shisui stated, helping him up and slapping his back. That was indeed incredible, Naruto-kun. Didn't know there was red fire, Itachi commented, as his eyes noticed that the moon symbol on Naruto's palm looked slightly darker, or maybe that was just him. I didn't know about crimson red flames myself, though indeed does look awesome, and they are way stronger than normal flames, Naruto replied. Itachi had already figured out the last part and wondered that if he should teach him his explosive clone jutsu, and fire style, star fire. Itachi decided to teach him that as a birthday gift for his 7th birthday. It had been a week since Hinata Hyuga had been saved from Naruto. The word had spread like wildfire. The clans were happy to hear that Naruto had saved Hyuga's heiress, but the civil part was more skeptical. Some stayed neutral while some would say that the demon was getting strong or some dumb shit like that. Itachi had invited Naruto to his house 6 days ago to eat dinner with them, but Naruto had respectfully declined his offer. Itachi of course knew about how his last visit ended. He still remembered his little brother calling Naruto parentless. The Uchiha prodigy hasn't told anyone, but he was half convinced to tell his Ka-chan. She would know what to say to Sasuke. Hello, Itachi, you there? Itachi escaped his thoughts when he saw Shisui knocking on his forehead almost like he was knocking on a door and waiting to open it. What? Itachi asked, not knowing what the problem was. Raikage will come today. Hokage told me 2 days ago to be prepared if my help is needed. Only now has Itachi noticed that Naruto wasn't here anymore. His eyes roamed around the field but couldn't see him anywhere. Naruto went to his house. He said he wanted to deal with something. Shisui informed him and they soon both left towards the Uchiha compound. Apartment. Naruto was sitting in a cross position, a blank letter in front of him lying on a table, a brush and black paint. The clones had started reading Fuinjutsu, but Naruto soon realized that reading Fuinjutsu would almost be pointless without practicing it. Therefore Naruto took it upon himself to train his Fuinjutsu. If a seal could hold the likes of Kurama inside his tummy, his mind wondered what could he do by advancing it even more. As he was writing a level 1 seal, his senses detected a huge chakra level suddenly showing up in the village. Hiashi Hyuga. Oh. He heard his daughter squeak when he entered the room. Hinata. Hiashi smiled. Though it was technically not proper behavior, he could understand the child's tears. She did go through quite an ordeal. Are you all right, Hinata? The girl nodded and quickly tried to wipe away her tears, knowing her father disapproved of such lack of composure. Not that she had much success, as new tears appeared just as fast. Naruto-kun saved us. But, Naruto-kun is fine, a female voice spoke from behind Hiyashi. Not that he was very surprised, as his wife at times seemed to be aware of everything. Hiyashi knew very well that if he was to be regarded as the best Jukin practitioner of the clan, Hyuga Hitomi would be the one with the best eyesight. Hitomi. Hiyashi, the woman smiled. Hinata is uninjured, despite the kidnapper's crude methods. Okay, can I? Hinata looked up to her mother. Can I see him? Where is he? He is in his home, she said gently. Hinata's face turned down, her disappointment obvious to her parents. But the clan owes Naruto-kun if he had not stopped the kidnapper, Hitomi added. Can we help him? Hinata begged. Hiyashi looked at his wife, who was busy correcting a deviant strand of her daughter's dark blue hair. His wife took a strange pride in that their eldest daughter had the same color of hair as she had. We will, and should, Hitomi assured her daughter, looking up at her husband's frown. If it wasn't for Naruto, we wouldn't have our daughter here, as only appropriate we reward him, perhaps giving him shelter. Naruto can stay with us, Hinata said hopefully. Hiyashi nodded. That would be proper. For now, I will ask Hokage-sama for formal approval. He emphasized on the last word, making clear to his wife that the case of Uzumaki Naruto was a special one. Not that he needed to tell her. Hitomi often paid more attention to affairs outside of the clan than he did. She knew very well who and what Uzumaki Naruto was. Hokage Tower. Hokage-sama. Hiyashi, the Hokage answered with a tired voice. Meeting the elders of the council had been a very bothersome half-hour. Any developments regarding the kidnapper? Did Kumogakur respond? The Hokage sighed. We can't tell, but Shukaku suspects he was sent here with a mission to kidnap a suitable female Hyuga so that Kumo could gain access to the Byakugan. Hiruzen saw Hiyashi's eyes narrow, as he considered the implication of what was said. No father would like to hear his daughter was targeted for the children she could bear. It wasn't like Hiruzen wasn't angered by this, but he lived too long to know that he couldn't make decisions based on emotions. But he was not in control of the Hyuga clan. And if the Hyuga would demand retribution, with the substantial influence they had within the village, this demand could lead to war. It all boils down to what Hiyashi decided. Fortunately, things did not turn out that way, Hiruzen added with his weary voice. Now that the peace treaty is formalized, and we have quickly spread that piece of news across the borders, Kumo knows that their position is unfavorable. They cannot make any demands without revealing that they breached the treaty themselves first. Kumo will not be able to try something like this again, not without damaging the diplomatic position it has with other nations as well. If this got out, no one would trust them again. I believe Kumogakur would choose an uneasy peace over an international scandal which could potentially lead to a war between them and a coalition of hidden villages. Hiyashi nodded. Through alliances and treaties were not respected as much as many would like, there was a consensus between the nations that those who broke a treaty within the same year should be considered honorless and could therefore be attacked by any nation without consequences to international relations. Even though the military prowess of Kumogakur was great, perhaps even being the strongest nation in the world, it would not withstand a combined attack from the other nations. Hokage-sama, the Hyuga will not officially blame Kumo, neither for the attempt to kidnap my daughter, nor the damage they have caused at our estate. We were fortunate that there were no grave injuries, and that Hinata is safe. Hiyashi took a short breath before he made his request, knowing the sensitivity of the subject for Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was rumored to have an attachment to the boy. And even beyond that attachment, the village's Jinchuriki was deemed to be a creature outside of the control of a single clan. Else, the Sarutobi would have adopted him the day he was orphaned. But the potential power which a Jinchuriki represented was a thing that every clan coveted. And as such, would not allow another clan to have. But if the voices of the most powerful clan, the Hyuga, and the most powerful person, the Hokage, aligned, even if it was done to repay a debt, Hiashi was shrewd enough to ensure that his clan would benefit. Hokage Dono, though I will not blame anyone, I would like to acknowledge the debt our clan owes. Your debt? Sarutobi answered wonderingly. Without Uzumaki Naruto, my daughter and heir would be on her way to Kumo. I would like to repay him, at least by sheltering him for a while. Hiruzen's eyes went wide with surprise at the request and dropped back into his chair. For a few moments, he stayed silent, considering the possibilities. Hiashi, you know very well that this child cannot be attached to any clan. Hiashi was about to speak again when Hiruzen raised his hand. I have already received multiple requests from Shukaku, Makoto Uchiha, Fugaku Uchiha, Inoichi Yamanaka, Inuzuka clan. I would like to adopt Naruto, but can't. I'm afraid if you like to do something for him, you can perhaps help him in other ways, Hiruzen stated with a painful heart. Hiashi said nothing. His facial expression didn't change, not even in the slightest, but inside he couldn't help but feel that his daughter would be disappointed. Hiruzen. He stood close to his desk smoking his pipe, his mind on what Hiashi offered. Did I do something wrong? What about the other clans? Hiruzen asked himself, feeling a headache coming. He hoped Jiraiya this time would decide to come and stop wasting time. Just as he finished that thought, the window opened immediately. He didn't bother to check who it was. Door just was never an option, Hiruzen said as he heard his student laugh. Doors are just a waste of time, nothing else, Jiraiya stated before his face turned serious and the temperature around the room decreased by a few degrees. What has Kumo done? Jiraiya asked, wanting more details about what has happened. Kakashi had sent him a brief recap, but he needed more information. Hiruzen sighed and told him everything, even Naruto's involvement in all of this. When Jiraiya heard the part that Naruto defeated a Jonin, he froze as he thought one single thing. He's just like you, Minato, Jiraiya thought with sadness, his student. Jiraiya, Raikage will arrive today, I need you to be prepared for everything, and if possible summon Chief Toad here, Hiruzen suggested, knowing they needed to show strength. Jiraiya had been deep in thought that he heard barely anything his sensei told him. Jiraiya. Sanin escaped his thoughts when he heard his sensei shout his name. What? Hiruzen said nothing but just sighed before turning his head towards the open window. Naruto is in apartment 7 near Nara compound if you want to visit him, Hiruzen suggested with a smile. Jiraiya remembered the blonde baby crying, his blue eyes. With a sigh he nodded his head and jumped outside the window. Jiraiya. Jiraiya stood at the top of a building, using a camouflage jutsu, looking through Naruto's window. The blonde was drawing something in a paper, Jiraiya suspected must be something about Fuinjutsu. His back was turned at Jiraiya, the Sanin felt his heart almost stop at his blonde hair, he felt trapped, the vision of Minato was right in front of him. He felt shivers around his whole body, the vision of Minato still fresh in his mind. At that moment Naruto turned his head to look at the window, Jiraiya stiffened, almost thinking that Naruto had detected him, but saw his eyes weren't focused on him, instead of to a bluebird drinking water from a fountain. Jiraiya saw Minato all over again, his son was a mini version of him, almost uncanny. Jiraiya bit his lower lip tightly to move his body again, he didn't know why he felt he couldn't move. His eyes went to the window again and saw Naruto had returned to drawing in the scroll. Jiraiya felt hot tears in his eyes, a tear slowly rolled down his cheek. With that, he disappeared from the view. Naruto. He felt Jiraiya had left, he closed his eyes tightly, so tightly that it was hurting, his eyes started burning like fire. His chest tightened, he tried to fill his lungs with air but he couldn't, his chest kept tightening like a trap, his heartbeat slowly getting slower, his hand holding his chest, as he felt everything getting covered in darkness and despair. Naruto heard Kurama calling to him, his head hit the floor, his whole body lying on the floor as hot tears were streaming down his cheek. Naruto had only one thought on his head as darkness greeted him like an old friend. If love is just a word, then why does it hurt so much when you understand that it isn't there? Killer Bee. His brother and Darui reached the Hidden Leaf village. Beside them stood 25 members of the lightning team of Kumo. The team members were high Jonin level up to low S rank level. They had just reached the gate and from there B saw the giant toad that was standing right beside Hokage Tower. B knew what that meant. Jiraiya of the Sannin was here and he had summoned his toad, a clear indication of power. B couldn't help but wonder if Tsunade Senju was in the village as well. His brother's eye narrowed at the sight of the giant toad. Jiraiya wasn't a Sannin for nothing. Not mentioning he knew how to use Sage Chakra, something only he is known to be able to use. The last person who used Sage Chakra was Hashirama Senju himself. Soon they reached the Hokage Tower. The big toad was smoking from his pipe, but at the sight of them, his hand went to the handle of his sword. Walking inside the Hokage office, B had to give credit for their artwork, it looked beautiful. Inside the room stood the Hokage, beside him was a man glaring at them with white eyes. A Hyuga, B thought, his eyes found Jiraiya of the Sannin standing near a window, his body leaning against the wall, his arms crossed. At the left side of the Hokage stood who could only be Kakashi Hatake, his Sharingan was covered, and close to Hokage was seated a man with a scar and pineapple hair. Raikage-sama, I hope your journey was good, the Hokage said respectfully much to B's surprise. It was good, now let's not waste time with this. I want to know why my shinobi was killed without any provocation, I spat angrily. The Hyuga narrowed his eyes and B was sure he would attack. The old Kage didn't say anything or react to the accusations. Your shinobi sneak inside Hyuga compound during the night and tried to kidnap Hinata Hyuga, the old Kage retorted still with a calm tone. Where's your proof? All I see here is accusations. You killed my shinobi and I want whoever did this in front of me or the only answer is war, I shouted raising on his feet looking down at the old Kage. The Hyuga tried to stand up but the Kage raised his hand. B only now noticed that the Sannin was standing behind them. When did he move? B asked himself as sweat rolled down his face. I have unmistakable proof and the one who killed your shinobi is only a child, the Hokage stated causing the Kumo team to freeze. While B was thinking, the children here are already strong enough to beat our Jonins and my brother wants to fight against grown-ass man, good idea brother. Impossible, who did then? I screamed looking at the Hokage. You can come inside. The door opened behind them and revealed a blonde kid with blue eyes that made B almost say, Minato. His similarity to the fourth Hokage was like the difference between 2 drops of rain. But his Biju was thinking something else entirely, his focus was on the palm of the kid. The moon and sun symbols were unmistakable. Naruto. He stood in the Hokage office, and his eyes were on the Raikage in his group. His eyes saw the large man looking at him with a stunned expression, almost as if he had seen him before. Naruto figured that must have been his father, his resemblances were there, even a blind man could see who his father was. But then his eyes saw the guy wearing weird dark glasses. Naruto, be careful, the one with multiple red swords tightened behind his back has Gyuki, the 8-tails octopus, Kurama warned him. Naruto mentally nodded but said nothing. He wondered why the Hokage had allowed a Jinchuriki of another country to walk inside the village. Still, knowing the Sannin standing behind them was a Fuinshitsu master, he knew the Sannin might be able to keep him in check if he tried to use Hachibi. Naruto could feel the sadness coming from the Sannin, same from a hidden Anbu to his right, and he figured he must be the dog Anbu. Still, His senses detected that Itachi and Shisui were inside the room as well, and both of them had activated their Sharingans. Naruto hoped this wouldn't turn into an all-out war, but he would need to reveal his Sharingan if it did. Raikage regained his composure. He didn't need to ask who the father was, but despite seeing his hair color and blue eyes, I could see the Red Death glaring at him. His face belonged to Kushina, there was no doubt whatsoever. Damn me and my stupid head, Raikage murmured under his breath and remembered the debt he had with both Minato and Kushina. Why didn't you finish me? You beat my speed. So why? I screamed at the yellow flash, his body barely standing. His sleeve was cut in several places, a deep cut across his shoulder but wasn't a lethal one. I hated this feeling. He hated to be seen as weak. If he died here, at least he would die against a worthy opponent. I'm not sure why, but even if I kill you, your brother will never stop, that will only fuel him. I stood quiet and let the words roam around his head. When he had told B about it, he first got a good punch in the face for worrying him and a second punch for telling the yellow flash to take his life. I knew B was probably thinking the same thing. B was about to greet the little Minato when B, the kid, he is the one, he's Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, his friend suddenly said. B noticed a sudden stop and wondered if Gyuki wanted to say something else but didn't ask. For real. Damn, I never saw Minato sealing Kyuubi inside his own son, but that's still too much like him, B replied, mentally smiling, remembering the yellow flash. Who's the little fella? B asked, smiling, taking a step closer and pulling out his hand for Naruto to shake. This caused every Konoha shinobi in the room to tense, but Naruto could feel no malice or negative emotions whatsoever. On the contrary, he looked and felt happy to see him, which confused Naruto. My name is Naruto, Mr. 8, Naruto whispered the last part only for B to hear, who laughed loudly. I'll lick you, kid. B started rapping, bringing his fist towards Naruto, who bumped his fist in return. Suddenly they were both in a much different place, and Naruto saw himself standing at the top of Kurama. Naruto screamed, seeing Kurama. He was about to ask what was happening when an octopus with 8 tails and horns at the side of his head, almost like a bull, suddenly came out of a shadow. Naruto noticed there were 7 other places, but they were covered in shadows, but he noticed each place had a number in the floor. From 1 to 9, he was in front of number 9, and the center of the room was a symbol he had never seen before, yet he felt like he had seen it before. Naruto scratched his head, but no idea was showing up in his head. Ignoring his gut feeling, he turned to look at Gyuki. You must be Gyuki, Naruto exclaimed, not believing that he was seeing another Biju. He knew there were 8 others, but still seeing one was pretty astonishing. The guy with weird black glasses was standing on top of him. Indeed, I am young kid, Gyuki replied kindly, much to his surprise, but Naruto wondered why he stopped mid-sentence. You're standing at the top of Kurama. That means you go well with each other, Gyuki continued, earning a huff from the demon fox. My name is Killer B, me and Hachibi. Stop it. B, nobody cares, Gyuki immediately interjected. Naruto chuckled at their interaction. He had thought that Biju were supposed to be big and scary, but so far, this one was kind. It's good to meet you, Gyuki, and you. Killer B, was it? Naruto questions, not understanding what the guy was saying. B was about to speak again when Gyuki said, his name is Killer B, and don't listen to him, he's still a child and hasn't learned how to talk yet, Gyuki said, earning a hey from B, who was insulted that his friend wasn't backing up his fantastic singing voice. Naruto laughed. Now, not that I don't enjoy having a conversation with you two, but weren't we talking about whenever or not we will start a war? Naruto said, looking at them curiously. You don't need to worry, Mr. 9. I will talk with my brother. He won't dare to start any war, B claimed, and didn't try rapping like usual, something that Gyuki found surprising. Naruto raised his eyebrows in confusion, while he was happy to hear that his Uchiha family wouldn't have to go to war and risk their lives, which brought a question to his mind. Why? B grinned and crossed his legs. Let's just say it is a dead my brother and I have to the yellow flash and the red death. Naruto understood that he meant his father and mother but didn't say aloud. Despite promising not to start a war, he still didn't exactly know Killer B. Therefore he just nodded his head in appreciation. I appreciate it, Naruto said. While this was happening, both Gyuki and Kurama were having a conversation that neither Naruto nor B heard. The kid, I saw his palms. He's the one, Gyuki asked, still wanting to be 100% sure that he wasn't dreaming. Indeed he is. I have seen him being able to talk with Ashura and Indra. He has already awakened the Rinnegan, but he's not strong enough to hold it for long. I'm sure he will be able to use Rinnegan the moment he awakens his Mangekyo Sharingan, Kurama replied with a hint of pride in his voice. Gyuki frowned. While he hadn't spent time with the Uchiha clan, even he knew what needed to happen for Naruto to awaken it. Kurama knew it as well, but with what Itachi said when Naruto was sleeping and not mentioning subtle hints here and there, the Uchiha clan situation was not going well. But he wasn't sure what to do. He could tell Naruto, but that wouldn't help much. Naruto wasn't strong enough yet to do anything, and even if Naruto tried to use his power, that only would cause more chaos. Kurama wasn't sure what the future held, but he hoped for the best. You know how strong he can get? Gyuki asked. I know Gyuki, and Naruto has my full support. He needs my help, Kurama stated. Naruto suddenly returned to the Hokage tower and saw many were looking at them strangely. Their fists were still connected, moving his hand away. The Raikage looked at his brother with a knowing look. He had seen him do the same with Yugito, and Konoha had only one Biju. You're the one who killed my shinobi, Raikage asked, but more like a statement. Naruto turned to look at the Raikage, and to his surprise, the Raikage held no malice. He wondered what was up with people of a foreign village being more friendly towards him than most people of his village. Naruto just nodded his head, and Raikage let out a huge breath. Inoichi Yamanaka had scanned Naruto. Your shinobi was found holding Hinata Hyuga in a bag over his shoulder, the third stated with a much more dangerous tone, his tone slightly higher, his pipe no longer on his mouth. While Inoichi didn't actually scan Naruto, the Raikage didn't need to know that part. The third wanted to show Naruto that he trusted his words, and forcing him to have his brain checked by Inoichi wouldn't help with that. Raikage said nothing but turned at the Hokage, and he took his seat. The Hokage gestures for Naruto to leave. The blonde left much to the disappointment of B. Training yard. After leaving the Hokage tower, he reached the training yard, and Naruto created 1,000 clones all around him. Now, all of you will beat me up until I can't move, Naruto shouted with a fist up in the air. Yes, sir, the clones shouted back with fists in the air. Several clones rushed at him. Naruto activated his Sharingan and jumped away. His moon started shining in dark color. Immediately he did several hand seals that were nearly impossible to trace, and he intertwined his fingers as he took a deep breath, drawing upon the chakra within his chest. Fire style. Great fire annihilation. He called out as he then unleashed a torrent of flame from his mouth. The blast of flame, so hot it was red in color, had a massive range and covered the entire training yard. The sea of flame towered everything. The very heat turned the ground into hot melted rock. The same air sizzled from the heat as the clones began a counterattack. Several clones jumped forward and synchronized their chakra. Sweden. Sujinheki, water release, water wall. In response to Naruto's sea of flame, a massive amount of water was expelled from the clones to meet his attack. Superheated flames met cold water, and the effect was explosive. The temperature change caused the air to suddenly expand and contract and unleash a shock wave that threw the nearby clones off their feet before a massive screen of steam obscured their view. Then Naruto himself rushed through the mist and was completely unaffected by the sheer heat, and he got right into the sea of clones. Startled, many of the clones rushed to attack him from all sides. His Sharingan seemed to glow as his eyes darted back and forth and read their movements. Predicting their entire method of attack, he sidestepped the slash from a clone with ease, grasped his wrist and kicked upward to break his elbow and force him to drop the sword he was carrying. He grabbed the sword before it hit the ground and spun and slashed the blade into the shoulder of another clone that tried to stab him from behind with a kunai, and then Naruto kicked him away. Who wants to dance? Several clones rushed forward and tossed several shurikens at the Uchiha, who effortlessly blocked with his stolen sword and ran at them before they could counterattack and beheaded them with a single slash of his stolen blade. Their bodies puffed immediately. Like a demented dance, Naruto cut a swath of death and destruction through the clone army without even taking a single scratch. Like a twisted dance, the Uchiha spun, dodged and sidestepped attacks while deftly landing devastating blows. Another clone, in desperation, then tossed a kunai with an explosive tag in it, and Naruto then caught the kunai in midair with a finger and slapped the paper bomb onto an unfortunate clone and kicked him into the crowd. He desperately tried to take it off, but the bomb exploded, destroying several clones while he jumped into the smoke and destroyed several others. Another clone jumped at him when Naruto jumped high in the air, his hand signs, his Sharingan shining. Fire style. Fireball Jutsu, a massive ball of fire collided with the ground causing a huge explosion that threw the clones everywhere. The shockwave ripped apart trees. Naruto calculated that less than half were left. He landed on the ground and waited as the clones rushed towards him. Later, the training ground was desolated to wasteland, smoke coming out of several places around the battlefield, rocks and earth itself was red and glowing in several areas. Naruto was lying on the ground, his limbs spread, his chest rising up and down. After defeating his clones, he created 1,000 more clones and used only cold weapons, no jutsu and no Sharingan. Kurama was refueling him with chakra since Naruto had decided to train harsher than ever before. Kurama, that guy B, he can use Hachibi's chakra to the fullest right? Naruto asked thoughtfully, and he noticed the chakra of B. Despite being a friend with Kurama from the very beginning, Yuki's whole chakra was freely moving around B's chakra network. Indeed he can. I haven't seen him, but if I had to guess, he might be able to control all tails worth of chakra and even transform into Yuki, Kurama replied, thinking that it might be about time to start training Naruto in how to use his chakra. Naruto figured that he might need to use Kurama's chakra, of course only with his permission. Kurama, would you allow me to train in controlling your chakra? Naruto requested. You can, brat, but we will start with only one tail. Having too many tails immediately might be an overdrive even for the likes of you, Kurama responded, not mentioning that Naruto needed to get rid of his dark side to fully be able to use his chakra and get access to KCM, Kurama Chakra mode. Naruto mentally thanked his furball friend for allowing him. I can still hear your thoughts, brat. Who are you calling a furball? After 1 month, Naruto was looking outside the window. It had been 3 weeks since the Kumo team had left. Itachi told him that Raikage admitted the order and took full responsibility for it. In return, Hokage wouldn't spread the word, and Kumo wouldn't be shamed in the process. Raikage signed an agreement to be in neutral friendship, and it meant they weren't enemies but neither allies. Much to his surprise, Raikage had asked about Naruto and if it would be alright to develop their friendship in the near future. Sadly, in that part, Hiruzen had ordered all his Anbu except Shikaku to leave. Whatever offer Raikage suggested, no one knew. Naruto didn't ask them. While he stayed in the village, B would spend every day with the little blonde, much to his happiness. I have another friend. Naruto thought happy. Much to young Uzumaki's surprise, B told him about a girl named Yugito. Apparently, she was the Jinchuriki of Two Tails Cat. When B mentioned her, Kurama had started grumbling. Naruto was walking around the Konoha streets with B. The blonde, of course, could feel at least 7 Anbu following them from the shadows, and he could tell one of them was Shisui, who was staying in guard all the time, especially when B sometimes would slap his back in a friendly manner. So, Naruto, do you know any place worth visiting? B asked with a carefree tone. Usually, he would try rapping, but Naruto was only a kid and probably wouldn't understand half of his words. B couldn't help but notice the glares coming from the civilians. Some were glaring at him. Most probably they had heard about what Kumo tried to do to the Hyuga heiress, but much to his surprise, almost everyone was glaring at the little ball of sunshine walking beside him. B felt terrible for him. It didn't take long to realize that Naruto wasn't living with anyone. And if people glared at him every single day like this, he wondered how this would affect him, or maybe it has already affected him. Ichiraku Ramen is a good restaurant. They make the best ramen in the world, Naruto stated. Then let's go. Little blonde, lead the way, B shouted with his fist up in the air. After eating, Naruto figured B might like the shops around the village, perhaps buy a souvenir or something, or purchase extra weird glasses. Both Naruto and B spent the entire day together. Naruto was busy telling him about his life. By half of the day, B started teaching him the art of rapping. At first, Naruto was skeptical but decided to listen to him. At the end of the day, Naruto could sing something. B called it progress and promised to teach more in the future. Tell me, young sunshine, have you thought to start training in controlling Kyuubi's chakra? B asked with a low tone. Not yet. Kurama says I will start once I'm ready, according to him, Naruto replied. In that case, let me give you a few tips. First, the hardest tail to control will always be the first, in your case, the fourth and the ninth tail. Once you control the first tail, you can easily go up to 3 tails, but 4 tails are where it gets tricky. Going from 3 to 4 tails is much harder than going from 0 to 3. Second advice, since Kurama is your friend, will make it a bit easier not to go berserk, but don't think that won't happen, so don't go overboard. Third, only try in a secured environment. Fourth, think of good memories whenever you try to use an extra tail. Be finished, and they bumped their fists. Thank you, B-sensei, Naruto said smiling. Naruto remembered the day with a smile, and B promised to meet again as soon as possible. Raikage had taken a week to make a deal with the Hokage, whatever that meant. The blonde just hoped that the Hokage wouldn't force him into anything. Now soon, the academy would start. Naruto wasn't that much looking forward to it, but he figured he could make new friends. To save Hinata Hyuga, her mother and father visited his home one day. They were both surprised to see an actual clear home with nothing on the carpet or just in a mess. Both had personally thanked him and told him that Hyuga clan would always be there for him if he ever needed anything. Naruto said that it had been nothing and he just protected someone when they needed help. Hiyashi also told him that Hinata would be in the same year as him in the academy. Naruto just nodded his head at that, and they soon left home. Just like that, a year passed away. Naruto slowly reached 7 years old and 1 year spent in the academy. After 1 year, a 7-year-old Naruto was making his way to the academy. He looked forward to spending time with the brains of the school, Shikamaru. With a smile on his face, he turned around and saw trees with red leaves in the Uchiha compound. The leaves were falling in the ground. He couldn't help but feel dread suddenly. Almost as if something will soon happen, deciding to ignore it, he kept walking towards the academy. From a tree, one Uchiha Shisui looked down at his little brother with concern. This is why I'm doing this. He made his way towards the academy. He still remembered the first day. Thankfully Shikamaru and Choji were there. He thought back to the first day of the academy a year ago. Inside, Naruto found that he was the third person to arrive. Looking over towards the back, he saw a boy with an oversized green jacket and sunglasses. He must be shy or something to hide in a jacket like that, Naruto thought. By the window, he looked over the other occupant, a raven-haired boy in a navy blue shirt and tan shorts with a fan symbol on his back, so the emo had decided to grace us with his presence. Taking a seat in the middle of the classroom, he waited for everyone else to arrive. Meanwhile, he went through his backpack to make sure he had all of his books and utensils. Kids started to rush in, not wanting to be late for the first day. Sitting in the same booth as him to his right was a dark-haired boy with a ponytail that oddly resembled a pineapple, looking like he just woke up for the first time in his life. Next to him and further down in the rightmost spot was a chubby kid with swirls on his cheeks happily munching on what he guessed was barbecue chips if the smell was anything to go by. Looking up from his row mates, he saw a man in standard Chunin clothing with a horizontal scar along his nose. Iruka cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. Welcome to your first day at the academy. My name is Iruka Yumino, and I will be your sensei until you graduate. Congratulations on passing the entrance exam and taking the first steps in becoming a Leaf Shinobi. Note, however, that it only gets harder from here. Today will be an introduction day with several tests. Some of the students started to groan. Iruka shot them all a glare. As I was saying, several tests to see where everyone's at. After explaining the daily schedule for normal academy days and the tests they will be doing today, Iruka starts passing around the written tests to everyone. Iruka looks to see if everyone has a test and nods to himself. Okay. You will have 1 hour to complete this to the best of your knowledge. The test goes over information that was in the textbook you were given 2 weeks ago after the entrance exam. Begin. Naruto picked up his pencil and started on his test. After looking over the questions, he smiled to himself. It seemed as though all that reading paid off. After Iruka called for everyone to hand in their test, Naruto nodded, happy with his answers. Iruka organized the stack of papers before he noticed that it was time for lunch. Now you all are dismissed for lunch, and you have 1 hour to be back here, don't be late. Naruto followed the other students outside to the lunch area. Looking around for a spot to eat, he decided to sit under a tree that didn't have anyone nearby. He opened his bag that had his lunch inside, and he had prepared a homemade sandwich with steak, followed by tomatoes that he didn't like much, but Makoto-chan told him many times that he needed to eat all kinds of vegetables and fruits. The two people Naruto sat next to in the classroom walked up to him as he opened his bag. Hi, my name is Choji, this is Shikamaru. Can we sit with you? A smiling Choji asks while gesturing to the bored-looking Shikamaru next to him. Hello, I'm Naruto, you can sit if you want, Naruto said while internally happy that they wanted to eat with him. So, what did you two think about the test? Asked Naruto. He was curious if he was the only one to read over the textbook before class. I thought it was too troublesome, so I just finished as fast as I could and took a nap, Shikamaru said lazily. This caused Naruto to raise an eyebrow. I have seen old people with more pep in them than this guy. Naruto looks over to a chuckling Choji expectantly. Well, it was okay. I don't think I failed, Choji said shyly. Lunch turned into a comfortable silence as the three boys ate. Okay. Everyone, lunch is over. The shout came from Iruka. Going back to his seat, he looks at his sensei expectantly for whatever is next. Now, we will spend the rest of the day in the training ground to finish the rest of the tests, Iruka said before leading the students to the academy training ground. The academy training ground wasn't anything special, and it had a variety of targets, a running track and an obstacle course for the older students to do. Okay, everyone, we will start with shuriken and kunai throwing. You will be graded and ranked, so take this seriously. Instructed Iruka, eyeing some of the students that didn't look all that interested. Naruto watched everyone go up and take their test. Naruto noticed that nobody got higher than 1 or 2 hits so far, and those were the clan children. Uchiha Sasuke, called Iruka. Sasuke walked up and took his stance before he started throwing his shuriken. He surprised everyone by getting 4/10 on shuriken and kunai, causing some of the girls to blush at his coolness when he just turned around and walked off without saying a word. Uzumaki Naruto, called Iruka, startling him out of his thoughts. He walks up to the post and picks up some shuriken, taking a breath and letting them fly like he has been practicing. Throwing the shuriken like he's been practicing, Naruto had a huge grin, having hit 10 out of 10 shuriken. Looking over at Iruka-sensei, he sees a surprising look as Iruka wrote on his clipboard. Naruto grabs the kunai and hits 10 out of 10 again. Happy at having the best score, he turned to look at the rest of the class. The guys were kind of put off at a kid being so much better than them, and the girls were all looking at him with awe. Beating Sasuke, who is an Uchiha, it was just unbelievable. He must be a prodigy. I know, beating an Uchiha on the first day. Plus, he is kinda cute with the whiskers. Naruto blushed at the last one. He walked over to Shikamaru, who was eyeing him differently than before, and a frowning Sasuke who looked like someone just stole his candy. What did you think of that, Shikamaru? Not too bad, huh? Shikamaru just looked at him for another second before turning away, deeming the situation troublesome. Sasuke steps forward, not to be shown up by some nobody. Don't get used to it. I will beat you in taijutsu for sure, challenged Sasuke. He's going to be number 1 like his older brother before him. Naruto, grinning is crazy, looked at Sasuke. I don't think so. I have been training since I was a kid, and I'm gonna be the best, said Naruto confidently. Sasuke just brushed it off and waited for the taijutsu spars to start, knowing the last names they would be paired with. He would show the nobody then. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow at Naruto's words. They were only 6 years old, and he talked as if he was at least 10 years old. After what Iruka thought was above average accuracy results for first day students, he flipped the page on his clipboard. Now we will start on the paired sparring. When I call your names to come up and get into your stance, all styles are permitted, family or otherwise. Uchiha Sasuke, Uzumaki Naruto, you two are up. Iruka called out, and he would never admit to favoring any student over another. But he was excited to see this match. Walking up to the ring, Naruto got into the loose stance for the style he's been practicing. Sasuke got into his stance, which Naruto noticed was like Itachi's style. After hearing Iruka shout, "Begin!" Naruto rushes in at Sasuke. Sasuke was taken off guard at how fast the blonde was. He barely avoided the punch to his face and went for a leg sweep. Naruto vaulted over Sasuke and kicked him in the back, making him stumble forward. Naruto uses the opportunity to rush Sasuke. Sasuke, who was regaining his balance from being kicked, rolled back to get to his feet and charged at Naruto. Both engaged in an impressive bout of taijutsu. Naruto saw an opening and sunk his fist into Sasuke's stomach, making him double over. Naruto follows up with a kick, knocking Sasuke back and onto his back, then rushes over and points a kunai in Sasuke's face. Enough. Winner Naruto, called out an impressed Iruka. Walking back over to the class and Iruka-sensei, Naruto notices the girls and the guys were surprised that someone could beat Sasuke. The Uchiha are usually the best in taijutsu, and Naruto took him down on the first day of class. Whispers were heard, "Man, shurikenjutsu and now taijutsu, this kid has to be some kind of prodigy." "No way he isn't," one civilian boy said to another, both nodding. Wow, he beat Sasuke-kun so easily, what a handsome guy." A blonde-haired girl in purple said to a wide pink-haired girl who just shook her head repeatedly. Okay, everyone, that is all for today. You can head home. The test results will be given back tomorrow, said Iruka, looking at Naruto a little longer than the others. Hokage's office. Iruka stood in front of the third Hokage going through his report. To be expected from a class with most of the clan heirs, they did better than average. However, one Naruto Uzumaki stood out from the rest. He scored 10 out of 10 on both Shuriken and Kunai and beat Sasuke Uchiha in Taijutsu. Also, his test score on the written exam this morning was quite surprising in that he knew most of the material. The only person that came close was a civilian girl by the name of Sakura Haruno. He has the makings of a genius. We should keep an eye on him, possibly even putting him in a higher grade to give him more of a challenge, reported Iruka. The third nodded to himself. Where would you put his performance compared to the other years? The third was curious about the little blonde talent and whether or not he should be moved up yet. I would say years 2 or 3 possibilities, and we won't know for sure until we cover more material, answered Iruka. Hiruzen nodded. Okay, dismissed. With a quick, Hokage-sama. Iruka left, taking out his crystal ball and watching a certain blonde boy read a book while eating dinner, and sighed, if he continues like this, people will put 2 and 2 together. He is pretty much a clone of his father, and if word spreads of a spiky blonde-haired blue-eyed genius, people will find out who he is. Which is something that would be a big headache should that spread to some other countries like Iowa. I should classify his info and his parents' info on a much higher level to be safe, a good thing not too many people know anyway. The third took out his pipe and puffed on his glorious tobacco before getting back to work. Naruto went through hand seals. After ending in the snake seal, he called out, Earth release, Earth-style wall. A massive wall of solid earth shot up from the ground before him. Proud of his now 5th mastered jutsu, Naruto started reminiscing about his time in the academy so far. Naruto's shurikenjutsu has gotten to a level that stationary targets weren't even difficult anymore. He's starting to practice wire techniques, something that only the most skilled in shurikenjutsu learn. In taijutsu, Naruto hasn't learned any new styles. He still relies on the Uchiha style form and the unnamed style from the book he was given from Itachi. Naruto has made alterations to both styles to fit his small body, albeit average for his age. He changed the style to focus heavily on speed and counterattacks. Genjutsu Naruto can say he is at the top of his class, but he doesn't know anything other than the Sharingan Genjutsu. Naruto was disappointed to find that in the academy library, only Genjutsu theory was covered. He would have to wait until he was a genin to make any headway in the illusion department. In ninjutsu, Naruto's most pleased with his progress. After receiving the scroll of jutsu from Itachi, he added 5 new jutsu, which he had just mastered last one. The others include the water release, jet stream. This jutsu has many forms, a wide cone of water to a concentrated stream. The more chakra, the further the range. Fire release, flame bullet. This was a smaller version of the Uchiha's famous fireball jutsu. Wind release, wind bullets, another chakra-dependent jutsu in that the more chakra fed into the technique, the more bullets produced and the stronger they would be. Lastly is his favorite jutsu so far, lightning release, lightning stream. The user would extend 2 fingers after condensing lightning chakra and release it all at once in a stream. It was mostly a stunning jutsu, but with enough chakra and control, it could pierce or even kill. Right now, Naruto put his hand on his pocket to see the kunai Shisui had gifted him for his birthday, and Makoto made the sweater he was wearing. Just the thought of the last winter put a smile on his face. Naruto knew this was how family felt like, and he would give it all to protect them. The snow had started for 5 weeks now. Naruto stood in his apartment. Thankfully the fire was ablaze in the fireplace, and it was warm despite the minus temperature outside. Naruto couldn't help but just look at the snow as it was falling. He didn't know why, but it was very relaxing. Naruto also knew the new year would be today. Therefore, A lot of celebrations will be around the hidden leaf. Thankfully, the new year would distract the people, and Naruto found it this day as the only few days when he could go outside without anyone glaring at him. Naruto gently touched the new jacket he was wearing. Makoto-chan had bought it for him this birthday. Itachi had given him 2 fire jutsu scrolls. As he kept looking at the snow outside, he suddenly felt 2 chakras right outside his door. A huge smile erupted on his face like a volcano. Guess who it is? Shisui asked from behind the door. Itachi rolled his eyes and was about to knock when the door opened, and Naruto jumped at him like an arrow and hugged him. "Ni-san," he shouted in joy. Itachi smiled and gave Shisui a look. "I told you so," and the other Uchiha grunted. "So you love him more than me? You wound me, Naruto," Shisui said, whipping away an imaginary tear from his face and his right hand on his heart. Both Itachi and Naruto chuckled. The young blonde pulled away and turned to look at Shisui. "Well, Itachi is my Ni-san, and you're like an uncle," Naruto stated with a smirk on his face. This caused dark clouds to suddenly appear at the top of Shisui's head and started raining only at him despite the cold temperature. An uncle, Shisui repeated, hugging his legs with a low tone of despair. Both Itachi and Naruto sweat dropped at the behavior of the Uchiha prodigy. Naruto thought about where the clouds even came from and could have sworn that he heard a voice inside his head. Just like Hashirama, is he secretly a senju? Naruto didn't know where the voice came from and decided to ignore it. "Just joking around, Shisui, of course, you're my big brother." This caused Shisui to suddenly stand up and put his hand around his neck and rub his spiky hair with his other hand. "You little brat," Shisui said jokingly, rubbing his hair much to the annoyance of Naruto, who was desperately trying to escape the grasp of Shisui. Itachi smiled and could see a slight smile on Naruto's face despite his mouth saying something else. "Now Naruto, today is a celebration. Mother wants you to celebrate with us," Itachi said, hoping the little blonde would accept despite his little brother having a tendency to talk shit to Naruto for whatever reason. Naruto thought to say no since he didn't want to cause any trouble, but he decided to spend this day with his 2 big brothers despite his better judgment. "Fine," he said before pointing an accusing finger at Shisui. "But if this one throws snowballs at me when I'm not looking, I will kick both of your butts until we reach the Uchiha compound," Naruto said with a half-joking tone. Shisui, when he heard his demand, hit a snowball behind his back and grinned innocently at Naruto. "Naruto, why would I ever do such a thing?" Shisui said, whipping away imaginary tears with his free hands. Before Naruto could respond, a snowball hit his blonde hair with Shisui grinning and immediately ran away. "Good luck Itachi," he said while running. Before the Uchiha prodigy could understand why Shisui said that, he saw Naruto making the biggest snowball. "Haha, bye," Itachi said, running with Naruto hot on his trail. "Come back here, both of you," Naruto demanded and started a chase of cat and mouse. Naruto found Shisui and hit him behind his back. This blonde ran away with Shisui chasing him holding 2 snowballs in his hand. "Come back here, sunshine, I just want to play," Shisui demanded playfully. Naruto grinned madly. With his sensor, he quickly found Itachi hiding at the top of a pole. Naruto dodged a snowball that hit Itachi in the face. Itachi glared at both of them before chasing them around like crazy. "Come back, both of you, right now," Itachi demanded as he threw snowballs at both of them. After 1 hour of chasing each other around the village, they stopped playing, with Naruto grinning and raising 9 fingers from his hands. "Only 9 times, you lose Shisui," he said, causing him to pout before he started rubbing his blonde hair. Naruto laughed and tried to move his hand away. Later, around 5 p.m., people had started hanging around the village, visiting restaurants and many different shops. Naruto reached the Uchiha compound. both his brothers standing at his side, but Naruto couldn't help but notice the small glares coming at him, but this time they were different. He had seen hateful eyes his whole life, but these eyes were different. Naruto just couldn't put it together why it felt different. The blonde decided to ignore them and was happy to know Shisui was spending the day with them. Since Shisui was an orphan, he had decided to spend the night with Itachi's family. P.S. Naruto, the blonde turned to his right to see Shisui gesturing for him to walk closer. Itachi ignored them. Hey Naruto, tonight, our Itachi is inviting a lady friend. You as a little brother should 100% try to support him to make a move. Naruto's eyes widened at his eyes, and he couldn't stop but look at Itachi in surprise. Her name is Izumi. When she arrives, make sure to tell her how much our innocent Itachi talks about her when she isn't around, Shisui whispered with his arm around the blonde's neck. Naruto had no idea that this Izumi even existed. He just nodded his head despite having no idea what actually to say to her. Shisui grinned and patted his back and started acting as if nothing was said, much to Itachi's annoyance who had a guess. Home. Ka-chan, I'm home, Itachi said, followed closely by Naruto. Shisui had left saying he needed to do something first. Itachi-kun, oh Naruto-kun, is good to have you here, Makoto said, smiling, walking towards them before Naruto could process it. Makoto hugged him tightly and kissed his cheek. It's good to have you here, Naruto-kun, she whispered and pulled away and walked back. Naruto smiled. Walking inside, he saw Sasuke was reading a scroll laid on the table in front of him. He turned and saw Itachi. Itachi, can you show me tomorrow how to do the flower fire jutsu? Sasuke asked. The smile on Itachi's face faded slightly. The older Uchiha told Sasuke to come with them to play snowballs, but Sasuke had refused, saying that he needed to get stronger to show how much stronger the Uchiha clan was. Maybe Sasuke, you should enjoy it today and play. You shouldn't see each day you live as a test. Sasuke pouted before his eyes hardened at noticing the blonde, who this time didn't bother with him but just went to the kitchen. After helping Makoto-chan with the biscuits and other desserts, Naruto was mixing something that he wasn't sure what. Thank you for helping Naruto-kun, you are really good at cooking, just like. She stopped mid-sentence, knowing what she almost had said. The cage had specifically told her and a few others that he would tell Naruto the truth when he thinks that he's ready. Naruto, of course, knew. Like who? Like your mother. Your face is just like hers but the hair and eyes of your father, Makoto said, feeling tears developing in her eyes. Thank you. No one tells me about them. I appreciate it, and I'm thankful for everything that you did for me, Naruto said, smiling. You can call me Ka-chan when we are alone, Naruto. I don't mind, Makoto said, rubbing his blonde hair. Naruto hides his face away from her and whips away the tears. Thank you for loving me, he mentally said. 9 p.m. Naruto was sitting on the couch chatting with Shisui about something. Fugaku had arrived early today and spoke something with Itachi and Sasuke when a knock was heard on the door. Come in, Fugaku said, but Itachi stood up immediately to open the door, but the door opened, revealing a girl around Itachi's age, long dark hair. Naruto had to admit that his brother had chosen quite a beautiful one. Izumi-chan, is good to have you here, Itachi said, smiling and blushing slightly, much to the amusement of both Naruto and Shisui, who were grinning like crazy. Oh, how are you doing, Izumi-chan, Makoto said, winking at Itachi's face whose face turned red in embarrassment. Makoto welcomed Izumi inside and made sure that Itachi was sitting right beside her. Naruto, at this point, was barely holding his laughter. The big brother who he thought was invincible was completely defenseless. Even the stoic Sasuke looked amused by what was happening with his brother. Soon Fugaku brought a gift for Itachi and Sasuke. For Itachi, he gave him a scroll with A rank on the top, while for Sasuke, he gave him several kunai and shurikens that weren't real sharp but mostly for target practice. Naruto was happy when Makoto brought him a little box, much to his surprise. Open it. Naruto opened it to find a red scarf that was perfect for him. Do you like it? Thank you so much, Naruto said, smiling like never before. While this happened, Shisui looked at his little brother's happy face, and he remembered the most important thing in this world again. Almost 12 a.m. Naruto was outside, standing just looking at the sky, the snow falling on his face. He heard footsteps. He turned his head to see Shisui sitting close to him. Beautiful night. Indeed. I wish this moment would never end, Naruto said, melancholy. Shisui turned to him and put his hand on his shoulder. I know what you go through, Naruto. I lost my parent at a very young age. I don't even remember them anymore, but you have me, Naruto, and I will do anything to protect my little brother. Shisui gave him a side hug. At the other side of the house, Itachi stood with Izumi watching the snow falling. I really liked your family, Itachi, she said, grabbing his hand and intervening her fingers with his. Before Itachi could say anything, Izumi brought her lips to his. Today, as Naruto walked inside the academy, he felt a cold shiver around his whole body. He turned around but didn't see anyone and couldn't feel anyone. Shisui was looking from a far distance, and his eyes became Mangekyo. I will protect my home and family, even if it results to this. Itachi-san, how are you? Not well, Lord Third. The clan is dead set on their plans. I fear within a year at most they'll revolt. Hiruzen lost his smile. This was serious. He didn't want this to happen. He really truly cared for the Uchiha, no doubt about that. One of his best friends had been an Uchiha. This would only spell disaster for everyone. Anything that we can do. At this stage in the game, I'm doubtful. Hiruzen looked down. However, he looked into Itachi's once more. Shisui told me that if all else had failed, he had a plan. I trust him. Bring him in tomorrow. Hi. Next day, Hokage meeting room. The following day, in the room, when Itachi and Shisui both appeared, they noticed Hiruzen and the village elders. Danzo being to Hiruzen's right, with the other two, Homura and Kaharu, to the left. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, can you please brief the elders on the situation? Shisui and Itachi gave them a rundown on the situation. They looked shocked and worried, except for Danzo. He seemed to have known all along in some way. He couldn't be behind it all, could he? Hiruzen, I've told you from the beginning. The Uchiha are not to be trusted. It was only a matter of time before a coup took place. Danzo, how dare you? Do you forget that one of our closest friends was Kagami Uchiha? Hiruzen said in defense of the Uchiha clan. They are the few versus the many. They truly valued the village over the clan. However, the Uchiha now can't be trusted. We must strike first and take them all out. Danzo retorted. The Uchiha clan needed to go. They were a danger to the hidden left village. Danzo, enough of this. I will not strike a leaf ally. Hiruzen responded with a slightly higher tone and slammed his fist on the desk in front of him. You're too soft, Hiruzen, Danzo said in disgust. Lord Third, if I may, Shisui said, interjected before things could go south. What is it, Shisui? Please tell me you have a plan. Hiruzen almost pleaded to Shisui. Enough, Hiruzen. Don't listen to this Uchiha, and we must strike. Silence. Go ahead, Shisui, Hiruzen ordered with a glare. Shisui's mind went back to his promise to Naruto, and he knew his little brother would be devastated if anything happened to them. I know what you go through, Naruto. I lost my parent at a very young age. I don't even remember them anymore, but you have me, Naruto, and I will do anything to protect my little brother. Shisui gave him a side hug. I can stop the coup. In 5 days, they will gather the clan. I will use my Koto Amatsukami on Fugaku-sama, and he will end the revolt. What? How? Danzo asked with narrowed eyes. My Koto Amatsukami is a special genjutsu, the strongest there is. I can activate on someone and practically control them. I can alter memories or fabricate new ones. I would make him believe that he no longer wants the revolt and plan for peace. He would never know. He would think it's what he always wanted out of his own free will. The entire room gasped in shock. The implications and use of such jutsu were absolutely crazy. This was pretty much the pinnacle of genjutsu. Danzo narrowed his eyes even more as he didn't trust such jutsu in the hands of an Uchiha. Hiruzen gained hope that maybe this could work while the elders were caught in the middle. Itachi looked at Shisui in concern. He knew from what Shisui said what the cost was, and even if that wasn't an issue, it must hurt knowing that you are just controlling somebody to your will. Shisui had his eyes closed as he thought about what he had just suggested, but there was no other choice. This had to be done. Very well, Shisui, I will allow you to do this. Hiruzen agreed with hope in his heart. Perhaps the war could be avoided. Hiruzen, you can't be serious. Enough, Danzo. The third roared, and his ki released, causing uneasy feelings to everyone. Hi. Thank you, Sandame-sama. Shisui said with a bow from his kneeling position. 5 days. In 5 days, the revolt will be over, and they can be peaceful within the village. Naruto wouldn't have to live through civil war, and he could still have his family. In 5 days, everything could be over, and they can continue being happy together. Itachi, Naruto, Izumi, Hiruzen, they can all be together secured in 5 days. Shisui had thought to take Naruto to live with them once he becomes a genin. He's already strong enough to be a chunin. Shisui and Itachi were walking together and had been silent for a while. They didn't really know how to feel. Things would end in 5 days, but also Shisui would carry the guilt of knowing that he's manipulated someone's mind to his will. Shisui, are you sure? Yes, Itachi. If I do this, the revolt is over. We can live in peace together within the village. Naruto won't have to live through civil war, and we can all be a family, you, Izumi, Naruto. It's for you guys. Shisui. Listen, friend, don't worry, okay. I got this. Shisui said smiling, I'm going to go see Naruto's progress on the genjutsu. See you around, Itachi. If it's for you too. I'll do anything. No matter the cost. 5 days later, Shisui woke up. These 5 days had been tortuous. Despite hiding it as much as possible, his favorite blonde somehow knew he was under pressure. Naruto asked him every day why he was sad and leaving out negative emotions. Shisui, of course, knew of his ability to feel the emotions of others. The Uchiha had tried to surpass them as much as possible, but all that seemed pointless when it came to hiding it from the likes of Naruto. Shisui, of course, had just avoided answering his questions or had tried to change the subject. The Uchiha knew that Naruto could see through his lies, and it hurts to lie to him. 1 hour before clan meeting. Lord Danzo, you wanted to meet me. Danzo stood in front of him and nodded. He looked at him impassively and just internally judged the Uchiha in front of him. How do you know this will work? The genjutsu can't just be broken, and it would only end or change on my choice. Even if I died, the jutsu would remain active. Shisui responded with slightly narrowed eyes. Yes, but what of the other Uchiha? Surely there are many that would revolt regardless. How can you be sure of that? How can you be sure that in the future, the same situation won't happen again? What do you mean? Shisui asked back, his chakra on his foot, ready for anything unexpected. Let's say it works out now. What's to stop the clan in the future from following the same path down the road? It got here once. Even if you stop Fugaku, the generation has already decided to take action. What stops them? Fugaku-sama will. They'll listen to him. I doubt that. As such, I believe I shall take your eyes and keep them in my safekeeping. Danzo lunged at Shisui, trying to take an eye from him. Forgive me. Koto Amatsukami. Shisui began walking away from Danzo when suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in the gut and kicked to the chest out of nowhere. The hell? He saw Danzo appear in front of him, and he was extremely confused at this. He also noticed that he felt strange now, like he was getting weaker and weaker. Danzo came at him again, attempting to get an eye, and Shisui's eyes widened. Danzo came so fast, there was no time. He was about to get his eye when suddenly a green aura came and then threw Danzo back. Susanoo, Shisui said, and the ribcage formed around him, shielding him from Danzo and saving his eyes. He noticed his weakness coming more and more, so he had to flee. He shunsen into the forest. 12 Root Anbu appeared by Danzo. Go get the eyes. Don't kill him. He won't get far with the poison in his system. Shisui blocked a slash aimed for his neck by Foundation members in a bear mask. He shunsen away again to gain distance, trying his best to maintain his lead. Just now he noticed blood coming out of his stomach wound, when Shisui thought and remembered when Danzo first attacked. A flurry of kunai flew towards him, and he deflected them all with his kunai. Landing on a branch, he was soon forced to shunsen again as a brace of shuriken thudded into the tree. This can't go on. I'll have to take them out. Shisui thought desperately as he returned fire with his own kunai. Another agent rushed at him, engaging Shisui in a fierce taijutsu match with flashing kunai blades. Shisui unsheathed his tanto in a brief battle opening and decapitated the agent who was battling him. An agent wearing a bird mask ambushed him from the left with another kunai, slashing Shisui across his left arm and throwing down a poison bomb as he went. In another shunsen, Shisui stabbed the masked bird agent through the throat, leaving him choking on his blood as Shisui fled. Landing on another branch, Shisui stumbled and fell to the forest floor below as his vision wavered and his legs weakened. He felt shaky and began coughing violently. Shit, I must have inhaled some of that poison. And who knows what exactly was on that kunai blade. The root agents surrounded him again. The captain gestured to his squad, and one by one, they all raised kunai with explosive tags tied to them. Aim for the legs, don't damage anything above the neck. Came the cold-hearted order. His agents nodded, swiftly sending the kunai flying at Shisui from all directions. Boom! A cloud of dust flew up into the air and settled over the forest. The captain gestured to his subordinates, they nodded and separated to search for Shisui's body parts. Suddenly a shower of bright green projectiles thudded into 3 agents. The smoke cleared, revealing a standing Shisui who was engulfed by a giant fiery green humanoid figure in a Tengu mask. The figure appeared to have its chest cage opened, ribs on stark display, with a bright red matagama in the middle of its chest. Shisui panted as his Susanoo slowly disappeared from existence, leaving him defenseless once more. One of the agents broke off from the formation and engaged Shisui as the captain, and the last remaining member hung back and started preparing a jutsu together. Unexpectedly, the single agent engaging Shisui fell with a kunai through the back of his neck. One fireball blasted into the remaining root agents, charring them alive, not even leaving time to shout. Shisui, are you okay? A worried shout came from the other side of the clearing. Itachi came running out of the forest towards Shisui, and he hurried to support Shisui as he collapsed. Huff, thanks, men, how did you know I needed help? And sorry for the trouble. You didn't show up in the gathering. I left and sensed that your chakra signature was in distress. I arrived to see your technique disappear, Itachi replied as he hovered over Shisui with a basic diagnostic jutsu. He frowned in worry. Shisui had been poisoned with a fast-acting agent that Itachi doubted anyone aside from Tsunade had the skill to remove. Shisui, you don't have much longer left, but we can go to the hospital. Shisui shook his head. We're going to our spot at the Naka River, there's something I must tell you urgently. He then disappeared in a shunsen. The Naka River was indeed a spectacular sight in the setting sun. The beautiful pink rays of light played off the tops of the trees surrounding the valley of the Naka River, and the water was a beautiful blue that rushed cheerfully along. The river looked like a painting rendered masterfully by a professional artist. Unfortunately, this beautiful sight was lost upon the two shinobi that had just arrived. Itachi appeared at the Naka River to a coughing Shisui. Itachi started a basic healing technique on his friend to at least ease the pain. Shisui panted as he looked at Itachi with worried and drawn expressions. He laughed. Don't make these worried faces at me. I believe in you to carry on for me in my place. Itachi, the Kotoamatsukami plan has failed. Danzo's root interfered. He doesn't trust me, and he wants my eyes for himself. He will resort to anything to protect the hidden leaf. They'll probably be coming for my eyes again. Itachi stoically watched Shisui remove his own eyes. Holding out a hand to them, please, keep my eyes safe. I believe in you. Itachi, I will be giving you great power, you'll need it in the coming days. Please protect Konoha in my stead. Itachi gasped. Shisui, you can't. Shisui patted Itachi on the shoulder. I'm not going to last much longer anyway, take it as my dying wish. As he started coughing blood, his palm on his mouth filled with blood and dripping on the grass. Speechless, Itachi could only gaze at his friend with a stricken expression on his face. Shisui smiled at them blindly. Come on, even like this, I can tell the face you are making. Don't look so worried, Itachi, everything will be fine. Itachi sadly took the eyes in his hand, drawing a seal on his arm with Shisui's blood and sealing it away immediately. Itachi summoned a crow and implanted Shisui's eyes into it, and he lowered his head respectfully to Shisui. I will carry on your will for the Uchiha. Shisui grasped Itachi on the shoulder again. From now on, you may be forced to walk down a long, dark path. One that is filled with pain and suffering. I have to apologize. Shisui's grip on Itachi's shoulder tightened, that I can't be there with you through it all. Still, I hope you don't falter from your path. And keep moving forwards as a leaf ninja. I believe in you and Naruto. That is why I'm able to ask you to carry on my will. Itachi had silent tears trailing down his face as Shisui patted his shoulder. Itachi grit his teeth tightly. Promise me to take care of Naruto. He will be alone, I know he's only a child, but I believe in him, he shall be the one to unite this world. He's special, and he will need love now more than ever. Shisui coughed even more blood, and his color skin slowly turned pale. I will, Shisui. Naruto is my little brother just as much as Sasuke, Itachi promised and thought of how he could ever tell Naruto. Shisui laughed loudly. Despite his lungs screaming in pain, he ignored it to have the last laugh with his friend and brother. Last actions complete, Shisui was relieved, he let out a short sigh. Don't stop me. With those final damning words, Shisui smiled and stepped backwards off the cliff, disappearing into the raging waters of the Naka River silently. Shisui! Itachi shouted, reaching for Shisui's hands. Only to fall short by inches. The figure of Shisui disappeared in the darkness. Itachi's Sharingan changed, taking the form of a three-blade shuriken. Naruto. Smiling, he had just finished the academy for today. Naruto rushed outside, the courtyard buzzing with people. The parents had come to take their children home. At the same time, Naruto waited for either Shisui or Itachi to come. Naruto felt the wind blowing against his face as a hand touched his shoulder. Turning around, he smiled, seeing Shisui in front of him smiling. Naruto was surprised that he hadn't felt his chakra coming. Naruto is time. Naruto looked confused. His eyes glanced, but he couldn't see Itachi anywhere. Time for what? He stopped mid-sentence as Shisui kneeled and hugged him. Naruto immediately returned the hug but couldn't help but feel cold. Shisui, are you, Naruto, promise you will live a long life. I never said it, but you're like a little brother, and your family to me. I have come to say goodbye, take care of Itachi, Shisui whispered in his ear. Naruto felt his body start breathing heavily. He wanted to shout, angry, why he was talking like that. OJ Naruto, the blonde turned his head to see Shikamaru looking at him with raised eyebrows. You alright? Naruto turned his head to look at Shisui but saw no one there, and his senses couldn't detect him anywhere, his eyes desperately trying to see him anywhere. The wind blew again from behind his back as leaves flew high in the sky. The blonde felt a pain on his chest, his heart beating on his chest, almost popping out, unshed tears on his eyes, his hands shaking. He kept trying to catch his breath, his hands in front of him, not feeling the warmth. I know what you go through, Naruto. I lost my parent at a very young age. I don't even remember them anymore, but you have me, Naruto, and I will do anything to protect my little brother. Shisui, Shisui, Itachi, tomorrow. Itachi walked inside the secret meeting of the Uchiha clan, his eyes roaming around the large room where the hidden stone of the Uchiha clan stood. His father stood in front of the stone, looking down at it. No one else was in the room. Itachi knew what the stone said. His Mangekyo allowed him to read the secret text, and it sounded too good to be true. His thoughts were interrupted when his father turned to look at his son with a fully matured Sharingan. Itachi narrowed his eyes slightly, his muscles tensed, almost like preparing for a fight. He never believed his father would fight him, but one can never be too prepared. Itachi, I thought you were training Naruto. His father asked with a neutral tone, and he didn't look angry with him, much to Itachi's surprise. He said he didn't feel good, Itachi replied, knowing Naruto's true reason for not training this time. The next thing that happened shocked Itachi to his core. His father's Sharingan changed into a Mangekyo Sharingan. Suddenly everything around him changed. He saw Kurama with Sharingan destroying the village. His tails were destroying the Hokage tower. Itachi fell on his knees, breathing heavily, cold sweat running down his forehead. Will his father truly do something like that? No, he would not allow it. Raising his head slowly, his own Mangekyo Sharingan was on full display, but to Itachi's surprise, his father didn't even flinch from his new Sharingan, almost like he was expecting it. I didn't know you had it, father, Itachi said, still breathless. During the war, I lost my closest friend. And is better this way, Itachi. If people of our clan knew of my Mangekyo, they would force me to use it on Naruto. I had him in my house, at my table. I could have easily used it on him, but that's not what I want, Fugaku stated with a cold tone. Itachi, with you inside, we can take over without killing anyone. The only ones that need to die are the Hokage, and Danzo. With you we can do it without any bloodshed, his father said and stretched out his hand for Itachi to grab. Right now, Itachi was happy he hadn't told anyone about Naruto's Sharingan. He looked at his father's hand in front of him. He wanted to accept it. Uchiha clan was his family, but he closed his eyes and remembered her words. Itachi, I love you, and I know we will be together and live in a just world, Izumi said in his ear. Standing up, Itachi closed his eyes and looked at his father with a neutral look on his face. Itachi opened his mouth to respond. He ran as fast as he could, jumping from the tree as he approached the Uchiha compound. Naruto spread his senses as far as possible but couldn't feel Shisui or Itachi. He's not dead, Naruto told himself repeatedly, sweat rolling down his cheek. He felt cold, his whole body crawling. Naruto reached the compound, his body moved on his own. He found Shisui's house, bursting inside. Shisui, Naruto yelled at the top of his lungs, his eyes desperately trying to find him. Where is he? Here, where? Naruto understood he wasn't here. He jumped away, making his way towards Itachi's house. Perhaps he's there despite not feeling him or Shisui neither there. The sun shines on his face, red leaves flying towards the sky. He shielded his face from the leaves flying on his face. Reaching the door, he opened it. Itachi, Shisui, Naruto cried out, his eyes looking around when he heard footsteps, almost breathed in relief only to see Makoto walking downstairs. She noticed his pale face, his breathing quickening and not stopping. Where's Shisui and Itachi? Naruto asked immediately as she tried to approach and ask what was wrong. I don't know, Naruto, but what's wrong? Naruto didn't stay and immediately jumped away. He activated his Sharingan as he jumped at the top of a pole, his eyes trying to find them. Naruto swallowed a huge breath. Where? Please, where are you? Take care of Itachi. No, you're not dead. Where? Naki River. Naruto immediately rushed towards the river, knowing he, Shisui and Itachi had trained there many times. Reaching it, he looked around for any sign of Shisui, the trees everywhere around him, the sound of the river rushing in his ears. Shisui Shisui. No sign as he kept his Sharingan activated. Inside, Kurama was silent, knowing what Naruto wanted to refuse. Naruto, shut up. Naruto yelled at his friend. Kurama always supported him. No, Shisui can't be dead. Naruto ran to the top. From there, he could see very far, his eyes searching around, nothing but trees and rocks. Shisui. Naruto turned his head downwards at the bottom, where the waterfall ended. He noticed something, jumping down, the tiny bits of water hitting his face as he reached the bottom. There he saw a body lying at the shore. Naruto swallowed. He felt his body freeze. He closed his eyes tightly, enough to hurt, his breathing rate increasing, his heart hitting his chest like a hammer, his hands and legs shaking. Naruto didn't know how, but he found himself walking towards it. Soon he reached the body lying on his belly, his right hand on the mud and his left hand still beneath the water. His hand moved on its own, rolling the body to face him. No. No. Itachi, Ni-san, help. Kurama, you can help him, Naruto shouted, his hand touching his neck, desperately trying to find a pulse. Naruto, I'm really sore. No, shut up. He can't be. He promised. He can't be. Naruto fell on his knees. He closed and opened his eyes. Shisui still there. Big brother, please see. Naruto suddenly felt lightheaded, his entire body numb, everything covered in darkness, the last thing he heard. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. Itachi. After 2 days, night. It was just past dinner time when Izumi heard a quiet but firm knock at her door. A pretty smile immediately graced the young girl's features as she sensed a familiar chakra signature. For a moment, she had an internal freakout. This was so sudden. She certainly hadn't expected Itachi to show up out of the blue, not that she was complaining. What if she looked like a hot mess? Untying her apron and tossing it aside, she quickly made her way to the living room mirror. She examined herself thoroughly, ensuring that there was nothing in her teeth and that she looked presentable. Deciding she shouldn't keep Itachi waiting any longer, she ran her fingers through her long hair and smoothed out her clothes before going to answer the door. Itachi-kun, what brings you? Wait, are you okay? The smile that previously graced her features disappeared as she took in the object of her affection's appearance. Itachi was in full Anbu gear, katana and all. She hadn't been aware that he'd been assigned to a mission. What was even weirder was the fact that he'd stopped by to see her before leaving. The raven-haired man quietly stepped into her apartment and removed his mask, donning a carefully controlled and blank expression. However, Izumi had known Itachi for a long time. She studied him carefully, looking into his eyes. She saw the pain in those onyx orbs of his, and her chest constricted painfully. Something was terribly wrong. Shutting her door and taking a calming breath, Izumi offered what she hoped was a comforting smile. I can tell something is wrong, Itachi-kun. Talk to me, she said. He stood there for a few moments, still as a statue. Inwardly, 2 parts of himself were at war with one another. He had a mission to carry out. Tonight was the night that the Uchiha clan, except for his younger brother, were to be exterminated. Why did his father and his fellow clansmen have to be so damn foolish? As he gazed into Azumi's innocent and hopeful eyes, he was almost tempted to take her, Sasuke and Naruto and run someplace far away. Nobody had to die tonight. He could take his two little brothers and his lover. They could be happy together, the village and the clan be damned. You know that can never happen, Itachi thought bitterly. The Anbu captain had decided to begin his onslaught with Azumi, the woman he was well aware of harbored deep feelings for him. She was so sweet and innocent, completely unfit for shinobi life. Yet, she felt that she had something to prove and insisted on continuing to push herself. As twisted as it sounded even in his own mind, he had to kill her first to spare her. If nothing else, he wanted her last moments in the world to be painless and for her to never be traumatized. He almost released a bitter laugh, disgusted with himself. Trying to protect her while killing her, how noble. Truthfully, Itachi wanted to tell her everything. He knew he could tell her anything, and she would never judge him, she would simply understand. Unfortunately for both of them, their fate was sealed. He knew that he couldn't put things off any longer, and he activated his Sharingan, his expression blank. There's nothing to talk about, he said coldly, his voice wavering ever so slightly. Azumi's eyes widened in alarm as realization washed over her like a tidal wave. She thought back to the hushed conversations that Itachi and Shisui had when they thought she was out of earshot. Had things truly gotten that bad? Had communications between the village and the Uchiha broken down that much? She took a shaky breath, more out of shock than fear. You're here to kill me, aren't you? She asked calmly, no hint of accusation in her tone. Itachi swallowed thickly, trying to maintain his composure. I don't expect you to understand, and I'm sorry. Tears stung at the back of her eyes, and she cursed herself for being so weak. She knew that there was no way she could fight him. Even if she could, she wouldn't. It was clear even to civilians that there had been tension between the village and the Uchiha for years. The optimistic side of her always believed that things would be resolved peacefully. As she took in Itachi's pained expression that he was so desperately trying to hide, she found that she couldn't be angry with him if she tried. She'd known him for years and knew that he despised the shinobi lifestyle and only wished for peace. She knew he had his reasons if he was standing in front of her like this to take her out. Her heart broke for him as she realized the pain and suffering he would endure for the rest of his days. Izumi released a breath she wasn't aware she'd been holding and bravely looked into Itachi's eyes. I know that you wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't your last resort. I want you to know that I'm not angry with you. And that I love you, she whispered, unable to stop the tears from falling. Upon hearing her confession, Itachi closed his eyes as the weight of her words washed over him. Of course, he'd known that she loved him. It was evident in the way that she looked at him when she thought he wasn't looking and in her actions. Why she loved him, he had no idea. Yes, he was a skilled shinobi. However, he could never be what she needed. Izumi deserved someone who would fawn over her and treat her like a queen. He was a trained killing machine and faced death and destruction daily. She was simply too sweet and kind to live that kind of life. Itachi realized that he wished he could be that man for her. The girl standing in front of him had wormed her way into his heart, and now he was seconds away from killing her. I know, was all that Itachi said before opening his eyes and unleashing his Tsukuyomi upon her. Izumi looked around the grand ballroom and quickly realized that she was in an illusion. However, this genjutsu felt so real, so unlike anything she'd experienced before. She gasped as she felt a warm hand grasp her own, and she turned to find Itachi standing beside her with a gentle smile on his face. He was dressed in a tuxedo, and he looked as handsome as ever. She glanced down and discovered she was wearing a beautiful strapless white dress with intricate beading. Izumi felt tears well up in her eyes upon realizing that this was her wedding and nearly fainted as Itachi leaned in close to her and whispered, "I love you," in her ear. Suddenly she found herself in a huge room with a lovely view of the ocean. The room had an indoor jacuzzi bath and rose petals leading up to the most comfortable-looking king-sized bed she had ever laid eyes upon. "Is this my honeymoon?" Izumi thought with a blush. Her question was quickly answered as Itachi embraced her from behind. He leaned down and peppered soft kisses along her neck, and she shivered at the contact. She knew this was just a powerful illusion, but she never wanted it to end. She would embrace it for as long as she could. Turning in his arms and wrapping her arms around his neck, Izumi caught his lips in a fiery kiss. He backed her up toward the bed and made quick work of removing their clothing, his lips never leaving hers. He overwhelmed her senses, and she began to feel dizzy with desire. Just how long had she been dreaming of this moment? She'd dreamt of giving herself to him for longer than she'd like to admit. For a moment, she almost forgot it was an illusion. As he caressed every inch of her skin and brought her to euphoria, she let all thoughts and worries leave her mind. Time suddenly moved forward, and Izumi found herself sitting on a familiar park bench. It didn't take her long to realize that she was sitting in the park where she and Itachi played as children. Scanning the park for any sign of Itachi, she gasped as she took in the sight before her. The raven-haired man was holding a little girl in his arms, spinning her around as she squealed happily. A little boy that appeared to be a couple of years older than the girl spotted Izumi and ran towards her with a smile on his face. "Mama, come play with us." Izumi couldn't stop the tears of joy from falling. Once again, time moved forward, and she found herself sitting in a rocking chair on a front porch, a cup of tea in hand. Glancing next to her, she found an elderly Itachi right by her side. She gave him a smile, which he returned, and they talked about their lives and grandchildren. She knew that she was witnessing what were to be her final moments, and she couldn't have been more content. Growing old and passing on beside Itachi would be the perfect ending to her story. Later, in the following hours, silent screams echoed throughout the Uchiha compound. As he ran another one of his kin through, as he felt their blood splatter against his sword and clothes, he couldn't help but think that the stains would never come off his soul. No matter how spotless his clothes looked when he finished purging them of the blood of his comrades, his conscience could never be cleaned. It was on this matter of thought where he found his father, alone. It was as if he was being waited for. "Itachi, what lies behind this slaughter?" He waited before speaking again, but his twisted eyes spoke to him in the way his father never could, the Mangekyo Sharingan. "Are you going to show me a different future from the one I showed you?" Itachi's eyes were dead as he faced the man who raised him, knowing only one of them would walk out alive. Masked Uchiha. Elsewhere, while father and son faced a dangerous confrontation, the shadowy figure in the orange mask known as Uchiha Madara had his own part in eradicating the Uchiha. He was walking out of the now corpse-filled Uchiha police building, so easy, he thought when he felt a rush of cold around him. The masked man looked around when he immediately turned his head, looking at the moon. "I could have sworn I felt someone up there." The figure disappeared, leaving Itachi to deal with his little brother. Itachi stared at the numerous bodies strewn around the streets. "This is the future I see for the Uchiha." Fugaku's warped Mangekyo eyes narrowed dangerously. "I see." Fugaku's calm demeanor belied what he was thinking on the inside, his mind racing. And he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kage Bunshin. Itachi narrowed his eyes and thought. "This isn't good. Tu-san was the worst possible enemy for me. This is going to be a battle of Mangekyo Sharingan." He pushed the thought out of his mind as he traveled to his home, where he knew his father would be, along with his mother. A quick shunshin got him outside of the house, where he walked toward the door cautiously, watching for any traps or surprises. He was trying to discreetly check their bedroom for them when he heard a voice from the living room. His father's voice resonated throughout the dead silent compound. Come inside, there are no traps. I will not participate in a death match with my own son. Itachi obeyed but kept his guard up. He walked in to have his mind blown. His parents were kneeling on the living room floor with their back to him. No fighting positions, no weapon in hand, not even a clenched fist. They were truly prepared to die. That's when the gravity of the situation hit him. Could he truly end their lives, the very people who fed him, clothed him, and were even prepared to die for him? For a cause they didn't believe in, just because he supported it. Itachi couldn't keep the sword from trembling in his hands as he stood behind his mother and father, tears rolling down his cheeks. His father's strong, commanding voice he would never see again cut through him sharper than any blade. You've aligned with the other side. He responded, his eyes getting watery. To-san, Ka-san. He was cut off by his mother's voice that held his heart in a vice grip. We know, Itachi. His father spoke again. Itachi, promise me one thing. Take care of Sasuke and Naruto. Itachi felt like he was being given his own personal type of torture as he couldn't hold back the tears anymore. His heart constricted tighter than he thought possible as his teary voice stuttered. I will. Itachi readied his katana with a heavy heart he thought would simply give out because of how much pain he felt. His father spoke for the last time. Do not fear. This is the path you have chosen. Compared to your pain, ours will be gone in an instant. Even if our philosophies differ, I am proud of you. You truly are a kind child. His silent sobs heard only by him increased as he drove his katana through their chests. While witnessing the aftermath of what he had done, he heard footsteps approaching the door. He recognized them as his little brother, Sasuke. He forced himself to look strong. The only way to escape this pain weighing him down like an anchor. He forced himself to stay silent after hearing Sasuke's yell, and as he heard, To-san. Ka-san. Yelled in fear, he stepped out of the shadows. Itachi. You have to help, Ka-san and To-san are. When he heard no reply from the older boy, he repeated again, shakily. Itachi. Who could do this? The raven-haired Anbu watched as horrifying comprehension settled into his brother's eyes as he saw the blood-stained katana held in Itachi's hands. As soon as those words left his throat, Sasuke felt a sting on his shoulder, and a shuriken embedded in the wall behind him. He looked down to see a thin line of blood under his ripped clothing and looked up in fear. Wait a second, no. Despite their teary state almost in an instant, Itachi's eyes were now as motionless as a stone. He spoke in the cruelest voice he could. Foolish little brother. I almost pity you. So weak. Sasuke's tortured voice ripped Itachi apart. Why did you do this? Itachi spoke. To test the limits of my ability. Sasuke was gripped with the fiercest anger he had ever been in his life at those words. To test your ability. That's the reason you butchered every member of our clan. Of our family. Sasuke charged at Itachi as fast as he could, screaming. You're out of your mind. As he went to strike Itachi, a swift punch to the stomach stopped him cold in his tracks. Saliva was forcibly ejected from his mouth as he stood, suspended on his older brother's fist. Removing that support sent Sasuke careening to the floor, face to face with his dead mother and father. It was then Sasuke started to sob uncontrollably. The volume is only matched by the booming sound of Itachi stepping toward him. He looked up in fear before realizing what he earlier had not. I'm scared, he repeated again, audibly. I'm scared. The younger Uchiha turned and ran out the door as fast as possible. His sobs echoed throughout the night as he screamed. I don't wanna die. He kept running through the streets of the Uchiha district, hoping it wasn't empty for the reason he knew it to be. He kept running until the sound of Itachi's ninja sandal hitting the floor in front of him struck fear into every cell in his body. Please. Don't kill me. Itachi's hard voice answered him. You're not even worth killing. Foolish little brother. If you wish to kill me one day, foster your hatred and despise me. By all means, run. Cling to your wretched life. And when you have the same eyes as me. His warped Mangekyo Sharingan spun menacingly. Seek me out. In the following 2 words, Itachi had to gather up more resolve than he ever had to in his life. Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke yelled in agony as Itachi used his Tsukuyomi to force him to fall asleep. Only when he fell to the ground did Itachi release him from the clutches of Tsukuyomi. With that, Itachi disappeared and decided to visit Naruto one last time. However, he turned as he heard the sounds of 2 kunai racing toward him. After seeing it was Naruto. Naruto was silent, his breath stuck on his throat like a lump, frozen like ice, piercing his flesh. His eyes saw Itachi in front of him, but at the same time, he couldn't believe his own eyes. Why? Itachi, why? Naruto finally managed to ask, his Sharingan shining in his eyes. He focused on his answers. He would know the truth, and he would not let him leave until he knew it. Itachi looked at Naruto with pain behind his eyes. He didn't know why he was here and how. He made sure that he would be in the apartment this night. I did it to test my abilities. Itachi spoke with an ice tone. He needed to lie and hide the truth, but don't lie to me, Nei-chan. Naruto screams in return, tears streaming down his cheek. Itachi didn't know how Naruto could know he was lying. He knew Naruto could tell lies from the truth, but that wasn't what caught his attention. No. Itachi saw as the Sharingan in Naruto's eyes changed, his Tomo started spinning until finally, they created his Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto, I need you to leave now. Itachi spoke with a commanding tone, his Mangekyo in his eyes. He prepared to use Tsukuyomi on him. Naruto suddenly spread his arms, his hands open, before Itachi could do anything. Kontororu no Tensai. Suddenly Itachi felt a wave of cold wash over his whole body. He felt pain spread everywhere when suddenly it disappeared. Itachi's hand moved at his katana's pommel tightened to his back. What's this? He asked himself, unable to stop himself. As his body suddenly rushed towards Naruto, his katana pointed at his chest. No. Naruto closed his eyes, waiting for his fate as a single tear fell on the ground as a scream of despair echoed through the night. Naruto opened his eyes, feeling no pain. He saw the blade just inches away from his chest where the heart was. He saw Itachi's right eye bleeding. Suddenly, before anything could be said, the sky turned red, the moon changed color to black, the bodies of everyone disappeared, including Itachi, who turned into crows. What happened here? Naruto asked, knowing he was in Tsukuyomi. The crows suddenly came together in a single point. Itachi looked at his little brother, who was still waiting for his answer. I'm really sorry, Naruto. My clan wanted to take over the village. It was my decision, Itachi answered honestly. Naruto closed his eyes, trying to take it all in. A flash of Shisui's body hit him. What happened to Shisui? Naruto asked, his Mangekyo shining. Itachi gulped slightly. The last thing he needed was for Naruto to dedicate his life to killing Danzo, but he knew Naruto wasn't an ordinary child. Please, just tell me, Naruto pleaded. Itachi sighed, knowing his brother could tell if he was lying and his Mangekyo wasn't something he had accounted for. Opening his eyes, he told Naruto everything about that day, how Shisui had tried to use Kotoamatsukami, and Danzo trying to steal his eyes. When he was done, Naruto's facial expression didn't change outside, not even in the slightest, but inside he felt a burning fire. Later, Itachi returned back, gasping for air. Naruto suddenly fell on his knees. Naruto felt dizzy. He still wasn't sure what jutsu he used to do that to Nissan, but his chakra had dropped to almost zero. Itachi said something, but Naruto could hardly hear anything at this point. Itachi left him alone as Naruto fell unconscious. Naruto. He didn't know how long he had been lying on the ground. His body slowly rose up, his legs shaking. He used a bit of Kurama's chakra to fully stand up and walk towards the house. Reaching the house, he walked inside. His eyes found her figure lying dead close to Fugaku. Naruto walked and reached her. His shaking hand touched her now cold cheek, his forehead touching hers. Her smile had disappeared. Ka-chan, please wake up, Naruto pleaded, moving her shoulder, but her body was as cold as a grave. Her skin had turned pale like snow, blood all over the floor. You can call me Ka-chan. Naruto started sobbing, his forehead touching her shoulder. He kept moving her shoulder hoping that she would wake up. Naruto's Mangekyo started expanding before turning metallic color. I failed, I failed, I failed.